The latest college basketball AP poll top 25 rankings are here as we head into week 4 of the season, and there has been even more movement near the top. And in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the AP top 25 rankings, starting at number 25 and going all the way to the current number 1 team in college basketball. But before we get into the week 4 AP poll, if you enjoy the content, please consider dropping a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. And now, let's jump into it. And as always, I want to quickly mention some of the other teams that are receiving votes and just missed out on the rankings. And to start, there's Kansas and Wisconsin, who have both dropped out of the AP poll rankings after they both had double-digit losses to top 10 teams this past week, and now they find themselves as the first two out of the rankings. There's also Georgetown, who is one of the next teams outside of the top 25 and have been slowly but surely receiving more and more votes to get into the rankings. And with wins over Maryland and Clemson currently, and an upcoming matchup with Dayton, the Hoyas could get there soon. And the last team I want to mention is Nebraska, as the Cornhuskers are my 25th ranked team in my personal top 25 rankings and are 6-0 on the year and have been extremely impressive to start the season. But to start off the rankings and coming in at number 25 is Indiana, and it's well deserved as the Hoosiers are off to a 5-0 start under Darian DeVries in his first season. The Hoosiers rolled past Lindenwood 73-53 last week and already own a statement 177 win over Marquette, and Indiana sits top 30 nationally in both adjusted offense and a defense, and they're powered by Tucker DeVries' 19 points per game on an elite 46.5% from 3 currently. There's also Lamar Wilkerson, Sam Alexis, Tayton Connerway, and Reed Bailey, who are all also in double figures. And with Kansas State, Louisville, and Kentucky all ahead, the schedule is about to get even harder. At number 24 is Vanderbilt, who enters the rankings for the first time this season after a 5-0 start. The Commodores have topped 100 points in 4 of their 5 games and hit at least 10 threes in every outing. Their offensive firepower has exceeded expectations, while turnovers forced have fueled strong defense for them. Duke Miles leads the way alongside returners Tyler Nickel and Tyler Tanner, and the transfer class has been huge early for the Commodores. Vanderbilt now heads to the Bahamas for the Battle for Atlantis tournament, where their scoring punch will be tested, but could move them up even more in the rankings. NC State rose to number 23 in the latest AP poll after a strong 4-0 start with a win over VCU, and they're powered by Darion Williams, who is the preseason ACC Player of the Year. There's also 5 different Wolfpack players averaging double figures, including Darion Williams, Paul McNeil Jr., Trey Holloman, Quadir Copeland, and Matt Abel. And then there's also Vin Allen Lubin, who anchors the paint. But their Maui Invitational opener was a huge setback, falling to Seton Hall after averaging 100 plus through 4 games and not even reaching 75 points in that one. And now the Wolfpack are at 4-1, and NC State will likely drop out of the rankings in next week's update, and they have some tough opponents upcoming with both Auburn and Kansas on the schedule. Arkansas slid back 1 spot to number 22 after narrowly escaping Winthrop with an 84-83 win before crushing Jacksonville State in their next game with a 115-61 win to reach 5-1 on the season. There's defensive concerns for me that still persist, especially after allowing 25 combined threes in recent games, but the freshman backcourt of Darius Acuff Jr. and Malik Thomas continues to flash star potential. The Razorbacks scoring ceiling is clear, yet consistency will be tested immediately with a huge Thanksgiving matchup against Duke, and Arkansas will need its best performance yet to secure its first marquee win of the season. Sitting at number 21 is the Auburn Tigers, who improved to 4-1 and could rise even further with their play at the Players Era Festival, and their lone loss came by 1 point to the number 1 ranked Houston at the time, and they just beat Jackson State by a huge margin. Auburn followed that up with an 84-73 win over Oregon, actually in their first game at the Players Era Festival, behind Todd Pettiford's breakout 24-point game. Keyshawn Hall has been dominant, transfer edition for the Tigers. He's averaging 23 points and 11 rebounds per game so far, and with number 7 ranked Michigan next, Auburn has a real chance to climb if they stack wins in Las Vegas. At number 20 is Texas Tech, who drops 5 spots after a 30-point loss to the number 1 ranked Purdue Boilermakers, and this was the program's first 30-point defeat as a ranked team, and honestly, the Red Raiders could have fallen even more in my opinion. The Red Raiders went 1-1 in the Bahamas, beating Wake Forest before falling in the Baja Mar title game, and JT Toppin continues to dominate for them, averaging 22 points and 10.5 rebounds, while Christian Anderson leads the Big 12 with 7.5 assists and scores almost 18 points per game as well. Then you have Donovan Atwell and Lawan Watts, who round out 4 double-figure scores for the Red Raiders, and now they are 4-2, and Tech must tighten its defense moving forward if they want to jump back higher into the rankings. Kentucky fell from number 12 to number 19 after an 83-66 loss to Michigan State this past week, where they were outplayed in nearly every facet of the game. The Wildcats, however, did bounce back with an 88-46 win over Loyola Maryland, but they still lack a signature performance against a quality opponent this year, and the metrics love them as they're number 12 in KenPom and number 15 in Bart Torvik, yet the on-court product hasn't matched that just yet, and with North Carolina and Gonzaga up next, Kentucky finally gets another chance to prove itself and stabilize after a disappointing ranking slide so far. UCLA jumped up one spot to number 18 after responding to its loss against Arizona with dominant wins over Sacramento State and Presbyterian. The Bruins beat Sacramento State 79-48 behind Eric Daly Jr.'s 15 points and 10 rebounds, and then they rolled past Presbyterian with a 40-point win with strong outings from Sky Clark and Donovan Dent. And with Dent back in the lineup, UCLA looked sharper offensively and more connected on the defensive end as well, and now they're 5-1 on the season and continue to gain momentum, and the Bruins will head to San Francisco to face former Pac-12 foe California in the neutral site matchup next. Tennessee rose to number 17 in the rankings after a dominant week, including a 91-66 win over Rice, where the Volunteers scored 52 points in the paint and won the battle on the glass. Felix Okpara posted a career-high 20 points in the game, while freshman Nate Ament added in 19 and 10, and Tennessee followed that up with an 89-60 win over Tennessee State in their next game and featured 5 players in double figures. And after the poll dropped on Monday, the Volunteers stayed hot with an 85-60 win over Rutgers in their first matchup in the Players Era Festival and look to be continuing their surge. Up next is North Carolina, who jumped 2 spots to number 16 in this week's latest update, and honestly, I think they should have jumped even higher, but they improved to 5-0 on the season with a 73-61 win over Navy last week and were led by freshman Caleb Wilson and the 23 points he scored. The Tar Heels are continuing to climb simply by stacking wins, and now they head into a tougher stretch with the Fort Myers tip-off ahead. UNC will face unbeaten St. Bonaventure next, and then number 11 Michigan State, and these will be a pair of games that could push them even higher into the rankings or cause a slide. Iowa State jumped up to number 15 after a 4-0 start that was highlighted by a 96-57 rout of Stonehill, and on Monday, they had a thrilling 83-82 win over St. John's in their first game at the Players Era. The Cyclones' depth and defensive discipline continue to shine, and seniors Taman Lipsey and Joshua Jefferson each poured in 23 points in their last dominant outing against Stonehill, and Iowa State has looked steadily stronger each week, finally climbing up to number 16 after 3 straight polls, and with Creighton up next in Las Vegas, the Cyclones will face a defining early season stretch. Checking in at number 14 is St. John's, who improved to 3-1 last week after a dominant 97-49 win over Bucknell, behind 20 points from Bryce Hawkins and a double-double off the bench from Dylan Mitchell. And Rick Pitino's revamped roster continues to showcase size, depth, and defensive energy. As I mentioned earlier, in Las Vegas, St. John's fell just short in an 83-82 thriller against Iowa State, and with guard play, particularly at the point guard position, being the biggest question for this team, and with Baylor up next on the schedule, the Red Storm can still solidify themselves as a top-tier team in the Big East and in the country. Illinois is up next, and they dropped 5 spots to number 13 after a narrow 90-86 loss to Alabama, despite 26 points from Andreas Stojakovic and 22 from Kylan Boswell. But the Illini bounced back with a 98-58 blowout of Long Island, fueled by another 20-point night from Stojakovic as the roster finally looks to get healthy. And honestly, I think Illinois should be even higher. But at 5-1, the ceiling remains extremely high, especially after earlier dominant wins and a statement victory over Texas Tech. And now they'll have number 5 UConn ahead at Madison Square Garden, and Illinois has another prime opportunity to reassert itself as a top caliber team. Gonzaga came in at number 12 in the AP poll after moving to 5-0 last week with a staggering 122-50 win over Southern Utah, and it was one of the most dominant showings anywhere this season. Braden Huff was amazing and scored 22 points in the game, while freshman Davis Vogel added 19 as the Zags shot 68% from the field, and with earlier double-figure wins over Creighton, Oklahoma, and Arizona State, Gonzaga has already proven its ceiling, and the analytics absolutely love them as they're top 4 nationally across KenPom and Evan Mia. And after the poll, they added another signature win over top 10 Alabama in Las Vegas, and I think this should be a top 10 team in next week's AP poll. Michigan State surged up 6 spots to number 11 after a statement 83-66 win over Kentucky in Madison Square Garden, which followed an earlier victory over number 14 Arkansas. And let me be clear, this team is way better than the number 11th ranked team, as they have been amazing as of late. The Spartans hit a season-high 11 threes against the Wildcats and continue to dominate the glass, averaging 14 offensive rebounds per game. Michigan State then steamrolled Detroit Mercy by 28 points to reach 5-0 and become Week 4's biggest riser. And with North Carolina and Duke ahead, Tom Izzo's group has 2 massive chances to push toward the top 10, which they honestly should already be in. But at number 10 is the defending national champion Florida Gators, who stay inside the top 10 after improving to 4-1 on the season with an 80-45 demolition of Merrimack this past week. Alex Condon was great as he posted 20 points and 11 rebounds, while Ruben Chinyulu exploded for 14 points and a massive 21 boards, which is his new season high. And since losing the opener to Arizona, Florida has rattled off 4 straight wins, cruising in most of them, and Ty Golden's front court still looks like the best in the country, but this transfer cards really need to find that consistency, and they have TCU up next on Thanksgiving Day, which could give them another quality win. BYU held steady at number 9 in the AP poll after one of the most impressive wins of the week, which was a 98-70 beatdown of the then 23rd ranked Wisconsin Badgers. In the game, Richie Saunders was the high scorer, and he poured in 26 points, while AJ DeBanza added in 18 of his own. And now the Cougars are 4-1, and BYU's ceiling is massive, especially when the big 3 of Richie Saunders, AJ DeBanza, and Robert Wright III are rolling. But they do have questions when they aren't, and the Cougars now sit at number 8 in KenPom and will head to Florida for the ESPN Events Invitational, and they'll open with Miami before facing either Dayton or Georgetown, and 2 wins in this event would even bolster an already strong resume. Alabama rose to number 8 after bouncing back from its Purdue loss with a ranked win over Illinois, and they were led by LeBaron Philon, who scored 24 points and added in 5 assists. You also had Keaton Bristow and Amari Allen in the game that combined for 19 points and 19 rebounds off the bench and showcased improved depth from there, especially with Bristow, who was absolutely amazing in that one. However, in their Players Era Festival opener, Alabama fell 95-85 to Gonzaga, dropping them to just 3-2 on the season. And despite one of the toughest schedules in the country, the Crimson Tide will likely slide next week, and still, this team's talent remains undeniable when the offensive's clicking. At number 7 is the Michigan Wolverines, who hold strong after moving to 4-0 with an 86-61 win over Middle Tennessee State last week. Yaxel Lindenborg dominated in the matchup with 25 points and 12 rebounds, while Ade Mara added in a double-double of his own. The Wolverines' undefeated record is impressive, but the earlier close calls against TCU and Wake Forest and their inconsistent three-point shooting remain concerns for me. However, Michigan did come into the Players Era Championship and blow out San Diego State in their first game, and now they're improved to 5-0, and they've showed some signs that they may be turning a corner at the right time, but we'll have a tough matchup next. At number 6 is the Louisville Cardinals, who stayed put after a strong 74-64 road win over Cincinnati and improved to 5-0 on the season. The Cardinals proved they can win even without their offense fully rolling and leaned on defense and some big backcourt performances from Ryan Conwell and freshman Mikael Brown Jr. And again, I think this is the best backcourt in the country right now. And with last week's win over Kentucky and one of the nation's best guard duos in Conwell and Brown, Louisville looks every bit like a national contender to me. And a matchup with ranked Arkansas in early December offers another resume building opportunity and will push them even higher in the rankings if they're able to win that one. UConn dropped 2 spots to number 5 after rebounding from its narrow 71-67 loss to Arizona with a dominant win over Bryant, and are now 5-1 on the season. Eric Ribey posted 16 points and 6 rebounds, while Silas Demery Jr. recorded a 10-point, 10-rebound, 10-assist triple-double in the matchup. And even in the loss to Arizona, UConn showed promise with Eric Ribey in solo ball, stepping up while key pieces like Taurus Reed and Braylon Mullins were out. And now with Taurus Reed back, and with a strong win over BYU already on the resume, the Huskies look like national contenders heading into a massive matchup with Illinois. Duke jumped up another spot to number 4, and they're 7-0 after a dominant week that was capped by a statement 78-66 win over Kansas behind Cameron Boozer's 18 points and double-double performance. The Blue Devils after that overwhelmed Niagara with a 142 win and Howard with a 93-56 win, and continued their early trend of double-digit victories, including wins over Texas and Kansas, as I mentioned. And Jon Scheyer's young roster is thriving, they're defending, and they're pushing the tempo at an elite level. And with 6 straight convincing wins, Duke look every bit like a title threat heading into a marquee Thanksgiving showdown against Arkansas. Houston actually slid back to number 3 even after staying unbeaten with a 73-72 road win over Auburn last week, where they were powered by freshman stars Kingston Flemings and Christinak Jr. in the game. Then the Cougars followed that with a 91-45 win over Ryder, where Flemings and Joseph Tugler were the big names in that one, and their dominance continued into this week at the Players Era Festival, where they pulled out a 78-74 overtime win Monday night against Syracuse, as the returners of Milos Uzan and Emmanuel Sharp each poured in 26 points in the game. And Houston's freshmen have been electric so far, and now their veteran seems to be starting to find some rhythm, but another ranked test awaits against Tennessee. Arizona surprisingly came in at number 2 to some, but they strengthened their case as the nation's best team after a 71-67 road win over UConn, which was highlighted by Jaden Bradley's 21 points and Koa Pete's 16-point, 12-rebound performance. Now they're 5-0 with elite victories over Florida, UCLA, and UConn, and the Wildcats boast the strongest resume in college basketball, and that's undeniable. Bradley continues to look like one of the best guards in the country and consistently delivers in their big moments. And despite only receiving 11 first-place votes in this week's AP poll, Arizona has a legitimate argue for the number 1 team and remains the nation's most battle-tested team for sure. But coming in at the number 1 spot is Purdue, as the Boilermakers remain the nation's top team after a dominant 6-0 start featuring wins over Alabama, Memphis, and a 30-point dismantling of Texas Tech this past week. The Boilermakers beat Memphis 80-71 behind Fletcher Lawyer's 20 points, then crushed Texas Tech by 30 with 7 players scoring in the double figures in the game. Trey Kaufman-Wren has been outstanding, and they are a different team when he's in the lineup, and he's delivered multiple double-doubles, while also Oscar Clough has gotten better and added 15 in the Red Raiders win. And with elite balance, depth, and physicality across the entire lineup, Purdue looks every bit like the national title favorite to me and continues to justify its number 1 ranking. But that wraps it up for today's video. Let me know your thoughts on this week's AP Top 25 rankings in the comments down below. Also, if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.